Hello, everybody. It's Sean Venable, the Wealth Mindset Motivator from DSV Legacy Estates. I am so excited about this show today. I feel chill bumps, like I'm really, really excited. As you all know, Dwayne and I say this a lot, we are on an ambitious mission to really redefine the meaning of wealth. And wealth is so much more than the tangible. It's mind, heart, body, soul, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, from a community standpoint, all of that plus tax. And so I have the pleasure, the honor of interviewing one of my coaches tonight, who I absolutely love and adore, Miss Sheri Brooks. So let's give it up for Miss Sheri. Thank
Hello,
you.
everybody. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you for bringing me on, Sean.
Thank you. Now, listen, I have to do it right in MMC fashion. So, could you please introduce yourself by the four clarity questions: who you are, what you do, why you do it, and who you do it for? Let's
Ye-
go.
yes, I can. I'm Sheri Brooks Jr. I'm an author, speaker, and a strategy coach. I help individuals get from where they are to where they want to be in their relationships, whether it's professional or it's personal. Who do I do it for? I do it for the individual who's stuck or who's stagnant in their personal relationships or who's stuck in their business and is trying to get to another level but doesn't quite know how and they need support in order to develop a game plan to do that. Why do I do it? Because that person was me. In my relationships, my previous relationships, this is currently in my third marriage. My first two marriages, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the work that was needed in order to have a successful relationship. And my purpose is to help other people not go through what I went through, because divorce is devastating for anybody that goes through it. And my hope is to be able to help people to avert divorce by being able to learn the skills to be able to have healthy relationships. As far as business, a lot of people want to be business owners, they want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know where to start and they don't know the steps. They have this ultimate goal in mind of where they want to get, but they don't know the roadmap to get there. And so I help people develop a game plan to actually get to where they want to be and avoid many of the pitfalls along the way.
Oh my good. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm looking at your shirt, a movement all by myself. That you are. So listen, Coach Cherie, I have a question for you. I have been a part of the business that you and your husband have, and I also have seen you and I watch you up close from afar. I'm so curious to know your backstory. Like
Oh.
I would love to know, as Coach Glenn would call it, the story behind the brand. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, so as far as me coaching, I've been coaching all my life. I was always, even as a child, a teenager, I was always the friend that everybody came to for advice, came to for wisdom. So I've been coaching all of my life. But after being in ministry for years, we were in ministry full time for 15 years. I realized that there was something more to this, that I wanted to make an impact, not just, random conversations here and there, but I realized that I wanted to truly make an impact. And one of the things that God put on my heart was to create a community for couples and parents to be able to have support, but also to be able to gain wisdom from one another, to be able to work together to be able to grow their business. And so I had the idea of our couples, our relationship academy, which is called the MAPS Marriages and Parenting Successfully Relationship Academy, probably about 15 years ago. But it didn't come into fruition until about, I guess it's 6 years ago now. And that was because we were actually located we had planted the church in Atlanta, and I found I didn't have community there. I had left my base of all my friends and everything in the DC metro area, and we moved to Atlanta. I didn't have a community, so I felt very much alone. And I realized that everybody needs community, and it doesn't have to be a physical community, but you need to have a community where you can reach out. And so that kind of led to the development of MAPS. And then from that, we formed the Business Academy because we had people coming to us asking us, how were we doing what we were doing? How were we able to build an online community and maintain and generate income in that community? And so we learned that there were a lot of people that had a lot of ideas that wanted to make impact. And that's the thing that's key for us. It's not so much about money, it's about making impact in your community, making impact in our community to be able to help people to build their relationships. And even in business, you have to have healthy relationships to grow a business. And so, because I didn't have that for that season in my life, it became very important to me to build community, to create communities where people could come and get the information that they need, to get the support that they need, to be able to grow in their relationships. And so, therefore, the MMC was birthed. But for me, part of my journey that is some people who see me now may not really understand this fully. So 5, 6 years ago, you couldn't have paid me to get on here and talk at all. I was strictly a behind the scenes person. I was not trying to come out front. I was not trying to talk. And actually I was in school completing my psychology degree, and I had to do a public speaking course. Sean, it was horrible. I'm telling you now, my
I
we
don't
had to
believe you.
we had to record our speeches weekly. Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. But I realized during that course that I had a fear that I had to overcome. And once I overcame that fear, Glenn and I had been doing Breakfast with the Brooks online. We did that online for 3 years. We started on Periscope, then we did it on YouTube. And that helped to build my confidence. And so, in me building my confidence, I found my voice. I found my voice to be able to share, to be able to speak, and to add value to people. Like I said, I was the behind the scenes person. I built all the systems. I put everything in order for our business to run when we started the business. But I was not the person that was sharing. I would peek my head into rooms and I'd just sit there and look pretty, but I wasn't going to say much. But once I found my voice, I realized that God has given me something to add value to people. And so today I'm able to walk in that. I'm able to share openly, transparently. And that's another thing that's extremely important to us because, I've been through a lot of things in my life, but I realized that they've built me to who I am today. So
Mhm.
without those things, I wouldn't be who I am today. So that's all a part of my journey, going through all the ups and downs, all the trials and tribulations to become who I am today so that I can speak boldly, I can speak openly and share that, because you never know who's in your audience that's been through what you've been through, that needs to hear that you made it through it. And so that's been kind of my journey. That's been, I guess, the story behind the brand. As far as me, I'm a survivor. I've survived domestic abuse. I've survived sexual assault. I've survived all kinds of trauma, drug abuse. Being in the military, I went through trauma during my period in the military, but it's all led me to become who I am today. And so today I can speak and I can share and help other people. And my ultimate goal is to be able to add value to people so that they can make an impact in the world.
Okay, so you have blown me away completely because when I listen for revelational knowledge. I listen for the nuggets, and you have given a wealth of knowledge. Some of the takeaways, community is big, right? And
Mhm.
I kept trying to figure out what is it about the MMC that I like. I got the tattoo for life. I'm never leaving. And it is because the foundation is built on something you didn't have, so therefore you became.
Yes.
I love the relationship piece of it. One of the things that's just been amazing for me and has given my husband and I both confidence to walk in business together is coming through the MMC, because I'd never really seen a couple in business together walking in their own lanes like you have in your book, and being able to do it successfully and nourish the marriage and the relationship. Support is key.
Yes.
And then you say survivor, like you a whole overcomer with all of that. That's a series of signature talks for a lot of women who need to see what the other side looks like for success. See, now I know, I keep finding out more and more while I am on this team. Now you said something about embracing your voice and overcoming fear. What are some of the tactical things that you had? Well, first of all, how did you get out of your head? And
Mhm.
then what are some of the tactical things that people are struggling in that way that they can overcome as well?
So, and I'm not a spooky spiritual person, but at the end of the day, it was me recognizing who I am in Him, recognizing that He made me, He created me, and that no weapon formed against me is going to prosper. And so, just knowing that He put something in me, and the work He put in me is not done. And so, my fears were based on my own insecurities, my own fear of succeeding. I had a
Woo.
fear of succeeding because I was accustomed to. So, a little bit more about my backstory. So, in school, when I was in elementary, middle school, high school, I was a a good student, very good student. I went to community college when I first got out of high school, and writing was my thing. I loved English. I loved writing. I wrote a paper, and when it came back to me, it was all red. And you know what that means. So the teacher then marked it up. I took that failure because I never learned how to fail, and that shut me down. So it was that incident. There was an incident when I was in middle school. I was in the band. I had a solo, and I freaked out when I got on stage and ran off stage. So from those two incidents that occurred in my life, I told myself, you can't do this.
Mm.
And so I had to retrain myself that no, you can, because you know who you are now. So, like doing the public speaking class, as horrible as that was, and I look back at them now and laugh, but it was horrible. It was really, really bad. But I realized that, he put something in me, and I'm cheating him if I don't use these talents that he's given me. I'm cheating God, and that I had to, practical things that you could do is like just start talking. I mean, you could do Zoom calls with your family, your friends, something to get you face to face with somebody else to get used to talking. Um, doing For me, it started in small groups because in our church I was a small group leader, and so that's where I started kind of coming out of that, because I can do small groups all day long. I could talk to 20, 30 people and not have a problem. But for me, it was the larger crowds. It was getting up in front of people. That was my challenge. But, and they give you all these tips when you're in public speaking class, imagine the audience is naked and all this stuff. I
It
couldn't do
didn't
that.
work.
I couldn't do none of that. So I just had to focus on, number one, praying before I speak, asking God to center me, and then just focusing in on what it is that he's giving me to say. And in most cases, I don't even remember what I've said because it's nothing but God. It's a download. And so I don't rely on me. I don't rely on my own strength when I speak. So for me, like even in the MMC, like I've done some lunch and learns and I've done things like that. And I realized that I believe you do need to prepare for things, but because of my temperament, I'm a chameleon turtle, which for those of you that haven't taken a disc assessment, that's a, what am I, a I and a C, I think. I don't know what they are. Whatever. I'm a chameleon turtle. You have to take the disc assessment with Glenn. It's the W2J that's available on our website. So we overlay the disc with the four animals. And so I realized with my temperament, I'm a planner. I'm a strategist, but I can over plan myself to the point that I can't speak because I'll be looking at my notes the whole time and not speaking. And so I had to learn to prep, but not over prep. And so I realized, like, even I was saying, like in the MMC, I've done sessions in there and I would have a PowerPoint. I can't do a PowerPoint because that throws me off. I need to just flow. And so when I flow, I can give the information and it's not so contrived because I have to allow him to come in to give me what to say. And I can't do it in myself. So I guess the most practical thing, like I said, is just practice speaking with your family and friends, with a group of friends. Start a small group. Start talking around small people and you'll build your confidence where you can get in front of larger groups. But the biggest confidence is going to come from your creator, knowing who he created you to be and just letting him download to you what it is that he wants you to share. And I think a lot of times as business owners, as speakers, as coaches, that we rely on our own strength and we have to learn to let that go and rely on his strength.
I just had to do a Tina Moore Globe like pause on purpose because there are so many similarities between us. It's ridiculous. Um, yeah, so many similarities between us. Same thing here as far as being an overachiever in school, but there were points in my life that I could actually pinpoint, and I had to go back and do the inner work to identify like where is this coming from.
Mm-hmm.
That literally would stop me in my tracks. Never had a problem speaking 101. Getting up in front of a crowd would almost pass out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am a planner. Like I need to know what time, and I've had to learn how to dial back so I can just be me. And
Mm-hmm.
that prayer before is key. So
Yes.
okay, I got a whole nother question for you because this is like so good to me. A lot of people of faith will sometimes try to separate their faith from their business.
Mm.
And what I absolutely love about the MMC, what I absolutely love about you as a person, as a whole individual, is that you bring your full, authentic self into everything that you do. And because of that, I don't feel like I'm getting a compartmentalized version of Sheri. I
Hmm.
feel like I'm getting the full version. So, have you always been that way? Did you have to learn? For new entrepreneurs that are faith based, any advice or any light you can shed there?
Um, I think I've always been very authentic. I think for me, when it comes to my faith, and I was a late bloomer when it came to my faith. I was in my 30s when I first found Christ. I grew up Catholic, so I didn't really know God. But once I came into my relationship with God, that became my core. And so, in anything and everything that I do, you're going to get that, whether I quote scripture or not. You're going to feel the presence of God because that's who I am. And so even in the community, we talk a lot about the principles of God without necessarily quoting scripture because that's who we are, because that's how we've gotten to where we are. Like I shared before, I've been married 2 times before. This is my third marriage. We've now been married successfully 23 years. The only way we've made it is because of God, because of what He's put in us and how He's guided us along the way. I cannot negate that when I'm talking to a couple. I can't leave that part out. And even in my book, this How to Build a Successful Business and Marriage, I don't necessarily talk about the spiritual part because for me, that's it's it doesn't need to be said because if you know me, you know that that's part of it. So I don't really go into that a lot there. But if you read through it, if you really read through it, you'll hear principles in there. And so I'm not a Bible scholar, never have been. But I know the principles of God and I live them. I do my best to live them. Now I don't live them all because I'm not perfect, but I try my best to live them out daily. And in doing that, it just comes out. It emits because that's who I am at my core. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I just like everybody else. I sin just like everybody else. But at my core, He's at my core. And so it always comes out. And I think because I was authentic before I even came to Christ, that just automatically came out. I've never been a fake person. I've never been one of the people that puts on facades. I've never liked that type of person because it's like I'm who I either you're gonna take me as I am or you're not gonna take me. And that just comes out in everything that I do.
I love that because what I feel in that is that you know that you are enough for what God has qualified you to do, what He has put inside of your hands. Like that, the fullness and the richness that you bring. And I love that you mentioned your book because I actually have it here. And I want to ask you because I know you and Coach Glenn have like co-authored several books.
Hmm.
What I have really enjoyed about seeing you in action behind the scenes and then stepping into the place that God is creating for you, that is just going to blow all of our minds, is that you're doing it so gracefully. You're doing it anyway. And so what was the inspiration for writing this particular book, Building a Successful Marriage and Business Without Losing Either One?
So the inspiration behind it is that unfortunately, being in this space that we're in, working with entrepreneurs and business owners, I have seen far too many couples, their marriages fall apart because of their business. I've seen many people that have allowed their ambition to cause them to separate from their families, for them to get their priorities out of order. And that's one thing in our community we stress is that, and I tell people in a heartbeat, I will shut down our business tomorrow if it is interfering with our marital relationship, if it's messing with our family relationships, if it becomes a hindrance, because I went through that. When we were in ministry full time, Glenn was so focused on the ministry for a number of years that I felt left to the side, that our relationship was put on the back burner. And once we got through that, I told him, I was like, we're never going to be there again. We're not doing that again. We have got to make sure that we keep each other a priority, that our family has to stay a priority. And so it didn't destroy us, but it got tight for a minute. It got really,
I
really tight,
understand.
but we were able to work through it. But I've seen couples that weren't able to bounce back from that. And I don't want to see couples go through that. I believe that you can have both, and that doesn't have to be either or. And also, for some couples, you don't need to work together. Not everybody that's married needs to work together. So, I mean, you don't need to go into business together. I mean, you may have your separate things, but you may not need to work together, because there are a lot of intricacies into working with your spouse, because it's creating a whole different relationship. It's learning how to code switch. And we can talk about that a little more in
Yes.
detail. So you have to be able to, the first thing when you're going to work with your spouse is you have to have a true level of respect for one another. If there is no respect, if you got any resentment, anything going on in your relationship, you need to put your business on hold until you get that straight. Because without respect, you're not going to be able to code switch, because you're not going to be able to respect your spouse as your supervisor or your boss, or they're not going to respect you in leadership when you're leading in a certain area. And so, those are critical in order to be able to have a healthy, a successful marriage and business. And like I said, I think a lot of couples will get into it because they see other couples doing it and they think this is a great idea. We can do that. And I can come off my job. And even for me, if I have to be honest, so we started the business together. I was on the back end, but I had a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to come off my job. I was perfectly happy doing the little back end stuff and let him run the business. And actually, the pandemic kind of forced my hand,
Yeah.
because, he had already been talking about he wanted me to come off my job and come and work full time for the company. But I was like, nah, I'm good. You good. Get a VA. She can handle that stuff. I'm good. I'll stay on my job. But when the pandemic happened, I was initially working from home, but then I had some health challenges. And many of you that know me know that I have struggled with depression and anxiety most of my adult life. And so that became an issue for me, and I wasn't able to continue working on my job. And so at first I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just be home and be the wife at home of the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't last long, because he kept asking me to do stuff, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to chill over here. And he kept asking me to do stuff. But I realized that, he had created a business that could support us. So it wasn't a financial thing. We had the relationship already in place, because from the time we actually met, we've been working together in some capacity or another. When we first met, Glenn was running a youth choir. My daughter was the first person to audition for the youth choir. And me being, I was a single mother, but I was trying to be as involved in everything she did. So I became the parent liaison of the choir. And so I started working with him directly during that. And then, like I said, in ministry, we worked alongside each other. So we had already kind of did this dance already, learning how to code switch. Um, so when it came time for me to, be off my job, not go back to work, it was easy for us. But I don't know if you want me to break down code switching now,
I
because
want you to
I can
break it
keep going. I can
down.
keep, okay.
Listen, no, listen. This is our conversation that everybody else gets to eavesdrop on. I'm giving you a whole wealth of knowledge, so I just want you to flow.
So code switching basically is being able to switch roles in your relationship. So when you're married, your husband and wife, your friend, that they're your husband, your friend, your lover. Those are pretty much the three roles that you have for the most part. But when you go into business together, now there's a co-owner or co-leader of the business. One of you is going to be in leadership in certain roles. One of you is going to be in leadership in other roles. And then, if somebody's handling the finances, you're over that, whether it's for the household or for the business. So there are a lot of different roles that you have to take. So for us, Glenn is the CEO of the company. I'm the COO and the CFO. So I handle all finances. As operations, I have to answer to him for anything that I'm doing. Like if we're planning events and things like that, I have to run everything past him. So I have to be willing to hear his input, to follow his direction, but I have to also be willing to, take that without getting in my feelings. Because what often happens in relationships, so if you're in business together, your spouse gives you directions that you don't like how it came off.
You
They
getting
got a
in all
little,
my business.
they got a little tinge just a little tinge to how they say
Mhm.
it. Then you want to pull the wife card. Well, how you gonna talk to me like that? No, 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 no. You're not in that role. So it's recognizing which role you're in. And I like to call it switching hats. So you got to be able to switch hats on and off on a dime. So if I'm in my COO hat, I got to keep that COO hat on while we're working. Now, when we get off work at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, that hat comes off, and now I'm your best friend and I'm your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I'm not carrying over whatever we may have had a disagreement at work. We may have had a heated discussion about a project coming up. You may have shot something down that I wanted to do. I can't now carry that over into my role as your wife and your girlfriend. I got to let that go. I can't. But what happens is people often they let it bleed over. So now I'm walking around with an attitude all evening, and he's like, "What's wrong with you? Nothing. You ain't have to talk to me that way. What are you talking about? You know how you did me in that meeting. You just shut down that whole idea I had. I thought that was a good idea. You ain't have to say it like that in front of all them people.
Oh, you telling my business.
That was word. When you go to a 9 to 5, what happens at your 9 to 5 stays at your 9 to 5. You don't bring that home,
That's right.
or you shouldn't. Let me say this: you shouldn't, because some people still do that. But even if you bring it home in that case, you're not venting to them like they're that person. But you're gonna bring all that energy into your home life, and it's being able to have clear lines to distinguish what your roles are. And that's number one. You have to define what your roles are when you're working together as a couple. You have to know specifically where your role ends and where your role begins in the business, so that you're not bleeding over, you're not stepping over each other's boundaries at work. But the key thing with the code switching is being able to take on and off those hats at will at the time that they need to be taken on and off, and not in the middle of a business meeting be like, I'm gonna pick this wife hat up. So what you say?
What now? What?
What was that? And he looking at you like, who the heck just entered the room? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's not my business partner. So for me, we're co-owners of the business. So I'm his business partner. I'm the COO. I'm the CFO. I handle all of our curriculum development. I handle most of our marketing material. I have a lot of roles. I handle events, but he is the CEO. So he is my boss. I have to run everything through him. We discuss everything with him. Now he gives me ownership in my areas, but I still run it past him. I don't just say, oh, I'm gonna do an event and then don't tell him, hey, this is what I'm thinking about we're doing. No different than if I was working on a regular 9 to 5 in a corporate gig. There's a pecking order, and you have to have that pecking order in your business, even as spouses, so that you don't overstep each other, and so that you can then, like I said, the biggest key with code switching is learning to cut off and cut on, turn the switch on, turn the switch off at the appropriate times, and not letting it bleed over. And particularly in I'm a woman, so I'm going to talk to the ladies.
Yeah.
Ladies, we get emotional, and we
We
want to
do.
pull that wife card, and you can't do that if you're going to be in business with your spouse. You just can't, because it demeans them. It causes them to be on a page that they don't need to be on, because they're in work mode. They handling a business. They don't need to pamper you as their wife while they're running their business.
Okay, so you just saved like 10.5 million marriages. Number one. Number two, and I need to tell you this because I think we wait too late to tell people the impact that they make. There is something about you, lady, that has this huge wave of impact and you don't even realize it. So Dwayne and I came to the conference last year, which we're coming back again this year. But we came last year, and that was his favorite segment. He was like, "You remember what Coach Bree said? Now you turn the switch on." And I was like, "But it saved us a lot, and it taught me as a wife how to make sure that I am valuing the king in him, and then
Mhm.
from a business aspect, when to turn it on and when to turn it off." Something that you have in your book is something that I'm starting to live by, even is staying in my lane. So if that is his zone of genius, and we have decided that in the business and agreed upon it, not to try to overstep or over trump or undermine,
Right.
but keep the current flowing. So, okay, so now I got a whole nother question to ask you. Like, this is so good. Oh my God. If y'all want Coach Sheri to come back, you guys do a part two and a part three and a part four, because this is so good. Now, I heard you say COO, CFO, running all of the stuff in the infrastructure. What I also know is that there's a whole brand inside of you. So now, stepping out of that space, still, still running that space, and now really embracing your voice to the fullest and stepping into your brand. What is that like? Number one. Number two, people would never know it by you talking, but I hear you say a lot that you're an introvert. And yeah. So how do you do what you do and turn it on and off?
So, I don't know if I would say that I'm an introvert. I'm strategic. So I I'm not the life of the party. I'm not going to be the one that comes in the room, hey, hey, everybody. I'm not extroverted in that sense. But when I'm passionate about something, I don't have a problem talking about it. And that's the thing that's key for me. I'm not a teacher because I'm not going to teach on something. Um, I can't teach out of a textbook. I'm not passionate about that. But if it's something that I'm passionate about, as you can see, I can just keep going on and on and on.
So
And
good.
so for me, finding my voice was learning to let that out. There are things that I've been passionate about for years, like relationships. Just helping people, and it's for me, it's all relationship based. Because even in business, you have to have the relationship, whether it's with your spouse or your business partners. You have to have a healthy relationship in order to be successful. Building relationships with your vendors, building relationships with your clients, that's all key. So for me, relationships are something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that comes from a place because I did not have healthy relationships growing up.
Mhm.
I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Even I'm learning now that some of the relationships that I've had over the years were unbalanced, where I, like I said, even from a child, I've always been the one to give, but I have not had surrounded myself around people that could give and add value to me. But I'm in a place now where I am gaining balanced relationships. And for a long time, I leaned on Glenn. Glenn has been my coach forever since we've been married.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's been the one that's poured into me, but I'm realizing now I need other people. I need women that are where I am, where I want to go to be able to add value to me. And so relationships has been something key for me. And I've never, like I said earlier, I've always been my authentic self. I don't believe in manufacturing relationships. I'm not going to just hang my hat on somebody's door because they're somebody. I
Hmm.
don't care about that. That don't matter to me, because at the end of the day, I need to know who you are at your core. And if there's no connection, I I can't roll with you like that. I'm not for lack of better terms, a get with. I never
Hmm.
have been. And so my relationships have been, they usually run long and deep, but I've realized, like I said, I've realized recently that my relationships have been unbalanced in the sense that I've been the giver. But I'm in a season now I need to receive. And so I'm changed, my circle is changing. But that's with everybody. You go through seasons and your circle changes, but being open to that. But relationships are something that's near and dear to my heart because, like I said, I didn't grow up with healthy relationships. Today, I have great relationships with my parents. We actually relocated here to Hampton Roads for me to be here with my parents as they were aging and they were having some health issues. Have a great relationship with my daughter and my son. And so that's always been something that's been dear to me. And so I'm passionate about that. And so I can talk about pretty much anything relationship um, centered easily. It just comes, it just flows from my core. Of course, streams from who I am. And by me also, getting my psychology degree, I have a better understanding how people think, how they function, how they see things, and I'm able to help guide them along their journey to be able to have healthy relationships. Unfortunately, for many of our people, we grew up in dysfunctional homes. We
Yeah.
didn't grow up seeing healthy relationships. And so we don't know how to have them. And Lord knows if you're looking at social media and TV to try to be the blueprint, um, that ain't gonna
Honey.
work. I mean, the Huxtables was probably the Huxtables back in the day was the
Yeah.
mark we were trying to reach, but that wasn't realistic. That
It's a
wasn't
fairy
real
tale.
because they was happy all the daggone time. That ain't a real relationship.
Mm-mm. It's
Not
not.
not at all. They had little tiffs every now and then, like, nah, they ain't show the real. They ain't show the
Hmm.
real. But that was something for us growing up in dysfunction. That was like, oh, that's way better than what we got. And so a lot of us shot for that and then realized shooting for that, hold up, this ain't that. And I think a lot of times people get into relationships and they're expecting perfection, and it's never going to be perfect. There is no perfect relationship. It's what's perfect for you and your spouse, but it's not going to be perfect.
You sound like a whole relationship coach. Like seriously. So, and what I'm recognizing, I think what I've always recognized about you, and I appreciate, but I'm recognizing it even more as I'm listening, is that you are so purpose driven. And I think for many of us, when we learn how to operate in that zone of purpose, it takes it to a whole nother level because it's not even about us. We are literally walking in our calling. All
Hmm.
right. So I have one more question before yeah, I'm gonna have to have you back. I feel like I just need to go sit on your couch. But one more question before I ask, like, how people can get in contact with you and what you have going. So I need you to dream with me a little bit. Now that's the part of Sean. She likes to dream a little bit, right?
Okay.
So you have just come off of your signature talk, or you have just come off of your relationship coaching conference, or eh, when people leave your presence, what do you want their experience to be?
My experience when people leave my presence is number one, that they are willing to do the work, um, that they are going to um, take heed to what's been said and actually do the work to achieve that. Whether it's them coming into a community or finding a community, whether it's my community or not, finding a community that can work along with them so that they can do that work. Because I think oftentimes we'll hear a good talk. We'll hear, this great kumbaya, oh, you can do it, this great empowering, inspiring talk. And you walk away and you're hyped up for a week and then it's gone. And so I believe that there's work that has to follow and for the order for you to be able to be successful in that. And so I think, for me, my ultimate goal is to make an impact, is that people catch what it is that I'm sharing and they catch it in a way that they're inspired to do the work so they can make an impact on their family. They can make an impact in their community. It's not about, you know, my thing is each one, what's that saying? Each one teach one.
Yeah.
So if every family that hears this, if whoever the representative for that family, if each family does the work to improve their relationships in their family, then their family goes out and does the same and it replicates and it does it over and over again. It's the impact is going to be broad, but it starts with one. It starts with one family deciding, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to break the generational curses in my family. I'm going to break the generational curse of poverty in my family by having a successful business, but not doing it to the degree that I destroy my family while doing it, because I can do both. For me, one thing, I know you talk about wealth all the time. And for me, wealth is relationships. I measure wealth by my relationships. It's not money. It's by relationships. It's by impact. That's how I am rich, because of the relationships that I have. I'm rich because of the families that I see, that I've impacted, that I see that they're living, they're for, like, as Glenn would say, they're the receipts. But I get to see people's relationships change. I get to see the growth. I get to see them flourishing in their relationships. That's what makes me wealthy. Now, I'm not turning down money. I'm not saying that, but that's not what I equate wealth with. For me, wealth is my relationship. So even as I shared earlier, Glenn and I went through that season when he was in ministry and he put our relationship on the back burner. When he made that switch, when his mind shifted, oh, I ain't need nothing else. I'm good. I God could have taken me. He could have took me then, and I would have been good because I was wealthy then, because we had restored the relationships in our family, not only between me and him, with our kids. All that was restored, and that's what wealth is to me. And I think people have to look at wealth differently and figure out what is it that you value,
Ooh.
and that's where your wealth comes. You want
If
to be
I had, hold
wealthy.
up. If I had one of those sirens like that, burr, 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 I would be sounding it off. Can you say that again about what do you value?
What is it that you value, and that you should be wealthy in what it is that you value. Number one, that should be your number one wealth capital. And whatever it is that you say that you value, if you value your family, you should be rich in your family. That
Mm.
means it should be healthy, it should be flourishing, it should be growing. If your family, if you say you value your family and it's stagnant, you're not wealthy in that area. You're putting your efforts in something else, but that's not what you value. And I believe that, what we do shows what we value. We can say we value one thing, but if you're doing something else, you don't really value that.
Hmm.
you like it, you love it, you care about it, but you don't really value. But if you have to determine what it is that you value first and foremost, and that should be your number one wealth capital. It doesn't say you can't be wealthy in other areas, but that should be the number one thing. And for me, family has always been my number one value. And today I am rich in family. And that includes my community. It's not just my biological family, it's also my community, their family. And I'm rich. I'm extremely rich, extremely wealthy in my community.
I'm gonna need you to. Can you add that one to your signature talks? Because that whole thing around what do you value, and that should be your wealth measurement and count. Like that's a whole thing. You know what you just said? I'll put it in the chat. As Coach Glenn said, like, do you know you are a movement by yourself? Okay, so what do you have coming up? Where can we sign up? How can we get in contact with you? Y'all, I got access to it first, so
Uh, so you can find me on Instagram as Sheri A. Brooks Jr. Sheri, Sheri A. Brooks Jr. And you can click the link in my bio. You can sign up for a free discovery session with me to learn about the different programs and services that we offer. You can also sign up to get you can not sign up. You can purchase a copy of my latest book, Building a Successful Marriage and Business. There's a link there, and also something that I have coming up in the very near future. I actually will be featured here on a show on KBCN as well. Me and Stacy Schultz will be doing a show called The Coach's Corner, and that'll be coming up very soon. Also, we have our bootstrapping event, which Sean spoke about earlier. That'll be in October. We'll be releasing sales for that coming up soon, where you'll get to meet with me, Glenn, and all of the other contributors in that community, where we'll add value to you. And so that's me. That's little old Sheri A. Brooks Jr.
I don't know whole movement. That's not a little old. That's like, oh my gosh. Well, Coach Marie, I love you to life. Thank you so much for coming. I was trying not to be emotional um, in this show because MMC is so much more to me than just another coaching program. It is truly a community. It is truly a family. And for a new entrepreneur, someone who succeeded in the corporate life, and God has still graced me to continue in that vein, stepping out into something brand new and then doing it with my husband, and us not having a blueprint, but praying that God will send us to the right community. This was the first community that I went to, and so I'm y'all are stuck with me. So sorry, and I'm so excited about what you have because I can too identify with um, me having trust issues, being really leery about relationships, and then coming into a space where I see strong women who are authentic and who are walking in their calling is something that is refreshing and something that I need. So I need you. I need you. And
Well,
I'll
I'm
say it one
glad
time.
you're a
I
part of
need
the
you.
family. You
Yeah,
family.
I am. All right. Well, listen, Coach Cherie, we're going to wave out to the people. I'm going to have you back. Listen, I'm just going to try to get on your busy schedule because you're a whole movement. So we'll wave out to the people. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Wealth Roundtable. See
All
ya.
right. Thank you.